Well, welcome to Advanced Pretend, everyone. A little bit of a different episode this time. Jen and I spend a lot of our time, not just on the podcast, but in life, interviewing a lot of people. And we never get to talk. So we want to do a little interviewing of each other. I think it'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah, we know each other through someone else that we both like a lot.
A lot.
She's pretty great.
I decided to live with her forever. Yeah.
Wow.
I know. Pretty crazy, right?
Big steps.
Mm-hmm,
So nice. Yeah, and so Matt and I kind of know each other through Sarah, and now we know each other through work. Like, I don't want to call it work.
Yeah.
Like, whatever this project is.
We can call it work.
Yeah. And but yeah, we don't really talk to each other during the recordings. We talk to each other through someone else.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, there's a lot of stuff that I've learned about Matt during our interviews that I do want to ask you about. And one of them is, so you actually have other podcasts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And right. And you film yourself for YouTube, like making craft cocktails.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, indeed. Yeah. The two of my first podcasts we no longer do, just because the first one is called still up, called The Smoking Hot Nerds. And it was me and three of my best friends just discussing film, TV, predominantly things like Star Wars, super geeky stuff. But one is in Boston, one's in Vegas, one's in LA, and I'm in Colorado. And it just wasn't sustainable anymore, especially after one of them had a kiddo. And so, we kind of let that one go, but it's still up. You can still see it on all the podcast places. And then I did one called The Makers, which is sort of discussing the creative process with creatives. And it was a lot of fun as well. But one of those things, again, it just became kind of difficult to coordinate with my co-host. You know what? This is probably the first time I've done a podcast with someone else where we're on the same time zone, which is actually kind of a huge deal because you can do so much more when you're on the same time zone.
It is a big deal. Yeah. I agree. Yeah.
So currently the one that I just started is called F Wonderful, and it covers all things Formula One. I became a huge Formula One racing fan during COVID. And so it's spelled the letter FONEDERFUL, F Wonderful. So it's kind of a play on F1, but also, do you remember the movie That Thing You Do?
Yes.
The Tom Hanks movie. And the band was called The Wonders, but the way that they spelled it the first time was ONEDERS. And it's sort of a joke in the movie that people would call them the Oneaters. And that always stuck with me ever since like high school, whenever I saw that movie the first time. So I thought it'd be funny to call it F Wonderful, but it looks kind of like F Oneaterful, which is kind of awesome. Yeah. But we only have 3 episodes up because we follow the racing season and talk about the previous race and then sort of our predictions for the next race. And it's a lot of fun. Yeah.
So you're like armchair quarterbacking Formula One? Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. Definitely. It's like fun. Yeah, Monday morning race car driver. So yeah, it's fun. But it's just such an aspirational sport in a lot of ways, not in the sense that I want to play, like I would never want to be a driver. But when you can get your business to a certain point that you could potentially be have your name on one of the cars or the guy's helmets or something like that, that would be such a huge milestone for me, in my business and the things that I want to do, to be able to sort of like advertise yourself in Formula One. It would be just amazing. So those sorts of things just really excite me. And they go places like Monaco and, and Belgium and Australia. Yeah. They go all over the world. And it's much different from like American racing for sure. So absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
I think before we were considering talking to each other, I looked at the Proust questionnaire. And one of the questions was, what would you do as an occupation if you weren't doing what you're doing right now? And I have 2 answers to that. And one of them is stunt driver.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Like I don't have any evil type thing?
No, like for the movies, like, and not really like any of the explosion type stunts. But just where you're kind of skidding out of control, and then you kind of do a lot of donuts and like high volume Starsky and Hutch kind of stuff.
Yeah, like John Wick sort of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
Where does that come from? What do you
I
have an interest in cars? Or?
Idea.
Yeah.
I know that my dad has an interest in cars. Like all through our kidhood, he was trading cars and getting new ones. And I remember a blue Mustang from the late 70s. I don't know. I don't know what that's about. The other occupation was set designer, which is more online. Like people be like, okay.
For like TV and film or for stage?
Probably for, that's a really good question, Matt, because I would say both. Like, if you had experience with stage, doing any kind of film set design would certainly be more gratifying. I mean, it would all be so gratifying if you could do all of it, But I think film probably the broad sweep of the cinematic lens is, and I could say I love Wes Anderson, and that's one of the things why I would say that I wanted to do that. But, I grew up in the 70s and the 80s, so I wasn't looking at him during that time.
Well, but he has a ton of influence from the movies of the 70s and 60s, because he says that he feels like every movie he makes, he's just trying to make The Graduate. That's the look and feel that he always goes for.
Film.
Yeah, I mean, it's an amazing film, and it was during that time too. Directors were starting to play with camera angles in a different way, super symmetrical shots, very very long takes, things like that were not. Is that a
Mike Nichols film?
Yeah.
Right. So Mike Nichols. Okay, God, that guy was great.
Yeah, amazing. So Wes Anderson takes a lot of his influence from that era for sure.
Maybe that's why I love him so much. It's like a chicken and the egg. But for sure, I think set design. I did a little drama in high school, and we all had to participate in every kind of part of it. And so putting the stage together was one of my favorite things.
Yeah, it's.
I don't know.
It's also a different part of your brain too. You know, when you're a performer or a writer, something like that. When you get to build the world, it definitely changes the way that you think about it. And it's interesting too. Production design, set building, all that kind of stuff for film is designed to see it through one lens. Multiple angles certainly, but there's one lens, one sort of focal length at a time. Production design and set design and stuff for music and for theater has to be seen from multiple angles at once within one box. And so it's like a really cool, interesting difference between the two things. And if you see a great Broadway play with great set design and production design, it's more mind-blowing, I think, than any movie could ever be. Right.
I mean, the set itself becomes a character in and of itself, and the environment becomes part of it. Plays a distinct role in the entire production and the story.
Yeah.
That's definitely what good set design is, right? Like it's in the story. And then like for film, if you're like panning through someone's room and you see relics of a person, and you get to know the character through what is chosen to be on the shelves, depending on what you're focusing on. But that's what it should be to me anyway.
Definitely.
So I pay attention to that stuff, and I love looking at movie color palettes. Like those accounts on Facebook and Instagram that are like the cinema palettes. I think that's super cool. And I just looked at one that was from Apocalypse Now, and like the amount of orange. The amount of orange is so intentional.
Yeah, for sure.
With all the flames and the Agent Orange.
Exactly.
But that stuff is so fun to me, and I do love film a lot. I like film a lot.
Do you have a favorite Wes Anderson?
Oh man.
Or a top two that always bounce back and forth?
I love Moonrise Kingdom. I used to really like. I think the Royal Tannenbaums were always somewhere at the top, and it's still true. But what he did, Moonrise Kingdom, was just so jaunty and hilarious, and like it should appeal to all the kid inside of all of us. The way those two characters, Katie and God, I forget the other kid's name, but and then I love how he keeps his family of actors kind of close. Like you see Bill Murray surfacing in, the aquatic life of Steve Zissou, and but he's here and there, and Frances McDormand and Edward Norton.
Yeah.
Just cracks me up. So yeah, I like that he keeps the actors kind of in a revolving door here, coming and going. And I love the Budapest Hotel.
I think that is undoubtedly his masterpiece. I think he could have, and I would never tell a director what
Hotel
to do.
Budapest. I think I got it wrong.
The Grand Budapest Hotel.
Thank you, Matt.
Yeah, it's his greatest film. It's the culmination of everything. Good. The look and feel that is trademark Wes Anderson, but also the performances. Like F. Murray Abraham as the old hotel owner, who you find out is, spoiler alert, is the little kid as well, and who's the bellhop at the beginning. His performance is so haunting and regretful. Not regretful per se, but you could see that there's a lot of hurt that he went through, and it's a silly movie, sort of, in a way. It's silly. It's a little goofy. It's playing on Nazi, occupation and all these crazy themes, but the core of it, it's just a guy who loved a girl and a hotel, and it's an amazing. And Ray Fiennes, I don't know if it has ever been better in anything ever, right? Other than that movie. Yeah.
Boy, that guy's got a broad ranging career as well.
Yeah.
And to see F. Murray Abrams, it's such a great reminder of what a powerful actor he is. He can
definitely
that face,
there's
so much to it.
See the second season of White Lotus?
Yes.
Because he's in that, he plays.
That's right.
Michael Imperioli's dad, and he's just so good. So good in that.
He is really good in that role. I love that was really good too. Thanks for reminding me. I've been really enjoying HBO Max. Gosh, what did I just stop? What the new Perry Mason.
Are you on the first season or second?
I just finished the second season.
Okay, I haven't started second yet. I thought first season was phenomenal. Yeah.
Yeah, talking about set design.
Yeah, right.
I mean, some things I really watch, like I will find myself watching more of what's happening, like in frame, that's not part of the action, and then I have to go back and be like, what just happened?
Yeah,
because I mean, they're so good at like taking you to the time.
Yeah,
and so I get distracted by that stuff. I love period costume, all that shit.
Nice. Yeah, the blend between, because they built a lot of that stuff practically, and then the occasional blending of that with sort of virtual production or whatever it was that they use is pretty seamless. And it's a time period that I'm in my 40s, and so the 20s were cool at a certain point when we were kids, and it's just kind of fallen out. Like no one really pays attention to the Great Gatsby era type stuff or anything like that anymore. Everyone's super into the 80s and 90s now who are younger. And so it's fun to see a show that takes place during such an era that no one at this age even, or, who are kind of the younger generations, they know nothing about. It's cool to see a show that's so good that takes place in the 20s.
And I loved it that they kept it there.
Yeah.
I mean, Perry Mason has been brought into the, modern day plenty of time. But yeah, I love that they kept it where it kind of was supposed to be, and where the story originated. And the costuming,
so good.
I'm like trying to go through plot points, and I'm like getting stuck on like Della's dress.
Yeah. Well, it's very lived in though too, because a lot of those movies could look like Hollywood, big tentpole pieces from the golden age, but this looks like they actually live in those costumes and live in that world. It's cool.
It's super genuine. Yeah, for sure. Anyway, so you live in Greater Denver, right?
Yeah, in Loveland, which is near Fort Collins. So basically like Fort Collins, Loveland area.
Right. I think when we met, you lived in Fort Morgan or some other part of Denver.
Yep.
And then, of course, I didn't even know any of your background at all, like I had said before, until we started this podcast.
Yeah, it's fun.
And so you pursued acting in California?
Yep. Yeah, I started as an actor, as you do, fourth grade or whatever it is, and became, really into it by high school, and went to college and did a ton of theater, and then started booking commercials and things like that. and then started working at an improv theater in Minneapolis, which is where I went to school. And that was really cool. It's called Comedy Sports. It was sort of like a competition improvisation show. You have two teams of improvisers, and the competition was secondary because we were all on the same cast. But
Right.
we would do short improvised scenes based upon suggestions from the audience, and that sort of was really what built my muscles, I guess, as an actor. And then took it to LA and booked some commercials here and there. Did a lot of extra work, a lot of production work, and then did the Groundlings, where I didn't end up in the cast of the Groundlings, but did the entire program, and which initially is improv based, and then it becomes sketch comedy based. So that's where I learned how to start writing and stuff. And so that was sort of my journey as an actor. And then once I had written and directed a web series in like 2013, that's when I got the bug to be a director and to write and direct my own stuff. And so that's kind of what I've been doing ever since. I mean, albeit my business now is mostly commercials. So I'm writing and directing commercials, but so it's for other people, but at least it's my own sort of like original content in a way, which is cool.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
I love that we're both self-employed.
Yeah, it's fun.
I sure I haven't been a writer very long. Well, I mean, I guess I have been a writer, but not like this, like the intensity of trying to cobble life together and keep a stream of income.
Yeah.
Is so daunting. I don't care what creative pursuit you're in. Mm-hmm. So that's what I'm doing right now, and it's going okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, my background is mostly corporate, and I took a really traditional track in a career that I started at Boeing in Everett, Washington. And so I was in the aerospace industry for a little while, and that was mostly as like a project assistant kind of thing. And when I left, I had been assigned to the 767 extended range program. And so I went from Washington back to Missouri, where my family is from, and I worked with engineers again. And I just kept on this kind of track where I was working with designers, whether it be engineers or architects. And so it was always really corporate level work. And then I moved to Idaho in 2006 with my now ex-husband, and spent a decade here in Teton Valley, where I am again. I left and I came back. So during the period that I left, like that's when Matt and Sarah and I met. And now we still know each other, but I live near Colorado, but it's probably about an 8-hour drive from Matt and Sarah. Yeah. Sadly. Boo-hoo.
So, but this is interesting because I've only ever known you as a writer and someone working in a creative pursuit. What was the plan, getting a job with Boeing and working in that field? Was there a plan? Did you always want to get into writing, or what was going on back then?
I have to say that I never really had a plan. So my only plan was I had spent 6 years in the armed services as an Air National Guard member. And I did that during a time when our country was at peace. I believe the only thing going, the only word on the street was the Bosnian conflict, right?
Right.
That's how ancient history Jenn Rein is. But
sure.
anyway, right?
Bosnia is a little
but
bit.
The experience, I mean, it was pretty mellow yellow compared to what we've been through since.
Yeah.
And so my service was really, I joined because I didn't want to get a college loan. And I came from a long line of people who had been in the military, and it seemed like a logical thing to do. And it really helped me. I mean, It helped me not pay for college.
Yeah.
And so also, I didn't join at a time when there was any kind of conflict that would have sent me into combat. So just the timing that was good for me. I bounced into the world. I did not finish my degree, and I was in Everett, Washington at the time that I kind of ended my enlistment. And I got a job at Boeing, like many people do. Yeah. And so between like the college I had, which was like 2 years like a general studies thing. I don't even know. I thought I was going to get a degree in literature, but I didn't. It doesn't matter. And so I just started my career because I was in the world and I was trying to pay my bills, and, I was living with roommates and, so I let it take its course, and it took me into corporate work. And I always kind of looked for that kind of work because I ended up being good at it. I'm really good at like systemizing things and, kind of categorizing stuff. And I have a data processor kind of side to my skill set. But for the past, I'd say 7 years, I have been heavy into content creation, and especially during a 5-year period where I was a member of staff at a digital media firm. And that's where I met Sarah. And we were creating content for a craft audience who made quilts and knitted and crocheted. And so, yeah, I took a corporate journey that led me into something I never thought I would do. I don't even know how I targeted that company in Fort Collins. I think I came out of Teton Valley and I wanted to go into something that was publishing, and they have a family of magazines. So I targeted, them for that. And so now you know me as a writer, actually, because I did work for them, and they have a family of magazines, and I still write for some of those magazines, which include Artist Magazine, which I started the year with a cover for Artist Magazine, which is only just luck of the draw, because I think it's what looks good with the taglines on the cover.
Right.
So it's mostly this like, oh, that artist looks good, but I got lucky because I wrote it. I don't know. But I still have a rotating byline with Artist Magazine, and that editor has been such a grace and a wonderful kind of generous personality in my writing career in the past 6 years or so. Her name is Anne. She's also the lead editor for Southwest Art, Watercolor Artist, and Pastel Journal. And so she has so much on her plate, and she still keeps me in the hopper for these kind of freelance things. And I get to write about oil painters and watercolor artists and pastel artists. And, sometimes she throws stuff at me, and sometimes I pitch stuff to her. So that's just one of the things that I do. And I have a lot of flaming balls in the air, as you do. I think my question for 9 Stories Creative. So you're doing primarily commercials now, but you also cover, you also aid like in the realtor game in some way.
Yeah. It was one of the first things that I did when starting the company was getting into real estate, photography and film. And so I have a nice sort of stable of realtors who I shoot all of their photos and videos and 3D tours at times for their houses. So it's really fun, and it's really interesting because I didn't expect that I would like it. I really enjoy, I don't do much of it anymore. Not anymore. I just don't do much of it at all. I really enjoy product photography. I really enjoy setting the scene and capturing that one moment. And so doing houses is kind of like that. I get to find the best angle and the best look and the best light and shoot a home. And also I just like going into houses. I just think it's cool to be able to see houses of all shapes and sizes. And lately it's been a lot of estates. And so it's these old ranch homes that are time capsules. Essentially, you walk in and they've never been changed since they were built in 1958 or whatever it was. And it's cool. Yeah. And the architecture that exists throughout the state, as far as homes are concerned, is fascinating to see. Such beautiful, gorgeous vintage homes literally in the middle of nowhere, or whatever. Yeah, it's cool. I mean, there was a period of time where everyone was taking a page out of Frank Lloyd Wright's book, not his crazy stuff, but just his desire to like make, affordable, homes that are classy. People started doing that. And some of the best homes that I photographed with the coolest sort of art as far as just how it was designed were actually homes that you could buy out of the Sears catalog, which is crazy to me. You could literally buy a house.
I remember
the Sears
that.
catalog. Yeah. And they would come and they would bring it all to your site, build it. And that was that. And I mean, true brick and mortar and, all the things. It was really interesting to see what. It's
Oh
just a
my
little piece of
God. So
history.
we had to circle what we wanted for Christmas out of the Sears catalog.
Right. Yes, exactly.
And that is definitely a very specific slice of generation right there.
Yeah.
But I remember that. I remember seeing architectural plans in the Sears catalog,
Yeah.
or at least the blueprint
Yeah.
for the first, second, and third floor. And
Definitely.
oh my God, that is
It's a
so
thing.
funny. What
Yeah.
a trip.
Yeah. It's cool.
Yeah, people were post World War II, they were so addicted to a certain look, right?
Yeah. Well, it was the white picket fence, American Dream. These guys were coming back from war, and they just wanted a peaceful corner to themselves. And this made it possible for them at whatever sort of income level, or if they're on a pension or whatever it was, to do that. And so, yeah, it's interesting. And then, I do a lot of work in my hometown of Fort Morgan, and I love it because I get to see all these old houses that I always wondered what they looked like inside. And so it's kind of fun to go in and make them look beautiful. And
See, that's cool. Like I would love the staging part of that because my
right.
little set design. All right. So I wanted to have a cocktail with you over this. And I have a shaker in front of me.
Nice.
Full of cocktail.
What did you do?
Okay. So I invented a drink recently.
Nice.
And I wanted to make a dirty martini because it's like one of my favorites. But I also have the ingredients for this on my Instagram feed. So, there's a video of it and there's ingredients out there. And I just did something off the cuff, which I don't really do that often. And so I did like a shot of huckleberry vodka, which is from 44 North. I'm doing this all wrong.
That's local to you, correct?
Yeah, it's Idaho made. And that's 44 North Mountain Huckleberry Vodka. And then a little bit of Chambord. We all know what that looks like.
Classic.
Because when you drink it, you feel like royalty.
Right.
Because of the bottle.
Yeah.
But it's a sticky mess.
Yes, it is.
The Chambord goes into anything. It gets all over everything. The juice of half a lime.
Okay.
A little bit of the sweetened lime juice. Roses,
yeah.
And then some Bada Bing cherry liquid, which there used to be cherries in here, but then brought them home and then kind of
ate them.
Then this became part of the drink. And so, and then I say here a quarter lime of garnish, but if you, and then at the very top, it says shake, 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 and pour into a martini glass. And I can barely really even read my own handwriting because I think I made like 3 of them to test.
Right.
And then by the time I wrote this down, I was like, whoa.
Shake, shake, shake. Let's go.
I'm going to actually put this on mute and shake it.
No, shake it. Shake it with the mic on.
Really?
Yeah. It'll sound cool.
Blow your ears out.
It's festive.
Okay.
No, not at all. Give it a try.
Oh, and then you're supposed to top it with sparkling water, but I put everything in here all at once. So
okay.
It's whatever.
All right.
Woo!
I was gonna say, hopefully that sparkling water doesn't blow up. Yeah.
A little bit.
Yeah.
I can handle it.
Yeah.
I'm a girl with a mop.
Yeah, exactly. It cleans up.
Yeah, it'll be all right. But what I like about it is, so I call it a fuzzy Kool-Aid because it makes you feel fuzzy and it tastes a little bit like Kool-Aid. But it should taste a lot like Kool-Aid because Kool-Aid is way too sweet, but it's like it should be a really nice pink color.
There you go.
And so that's what it looks like.
Very nice. And then you put that lime garnish if you want to, and
it's
a nice compliment to the color.
And you really should top it with the seltzer because it just looks pretty with the sparkle on top and it doesn't the fizzy thing. But ultimately,
fuzziness.
Yeah.
Well, I've just got Fort Collins local Voodoo Ranger IPA going. So that's the good stuff lately. So I'm curious, you have another question on here.
Oh yeah.
And it says, where'd you go? If you could be anyone else, who would you be?
Oh my.
Is that anyone in terms of like I could be Superman or I want to be a doctor?
I gave that some thought too right before the episode. And I was like, is this my mind went straight to like historical figure. And even though I didn't even give it any thought when I chose the question, really. If you could be anyone else, who would you be? I would be Dorothy Parker.
All right.
So she was a member of the Algonquin Round Table in the 1920s, and she was kind of a bitch. So, but I do understand what you mean by like, if it could be anything, what could it be? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I don't know, travel writer. If I could pick like a niche for writing, that would be my dream. I would try and align it with seeing the world.
Right.
Because there's so much world to see, and I'm just never going to get to all of it. It's just impossible. So, yeah. So, what were you thinking about that?
Well, I was thinking I would just be Steven Spielberg.
Yeah,
he was the guy who's made any movie you would ever want to make, and including the most recent one he made. Basically, it was a retrospective on his own childhood, and I mean, he's done everything, and he's also done things like producing Band of Brothers, which was a remarkable sort of World War II series from the early 2000s to documentaries. He redefined movies in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
But also is probably one of, if not the greatest of all time, for a lot of reasons. Because you can watch a movie that you don't realize it's his, and you're like, that's a really good movie. And it's directed by Steven Spielberg. You're like,
have you ever seen Duel?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that was his first TV movie.
Right.
Yeah.
Wait, who was that? Dennis? Oh, the actor. I forget.
I don't know. I don't think he was anyone. Well, he was famous then, but not someone who had much like a long career, I don't believe.
No, it was a television actor.
Yeah.
Yeah. But Duel, oh my God. Yeah. But okay, so Jaws, right? I really love that movie still. And I also will watch almost any shark film because of my, like, even if it's trashy, but I love that you didn't see the shark for a really long time. He was only implied.
Yeah.
For a really long time. And so and then the water level shot that he I mean, he's just got his fingerprints are just everywhere all over like modern.
Yeah. Framing
our modern.
Just so much. Yeah. And he does things too that there's foreshadowing. The camera will linger on something in the scene for seemingly no reason. It comes back later. It's just, he does a lot of things that are a bit lost in the modern, filmmaking nowadays that are, Jaws is one of those that's one of those films where everyone thought it was just this big blockbuster, but the truth was it was like a very carefully crafted, nuanced film that had more to say about, us as humans than about a killer shark,
Yeah. I just love that story.
Yeah.
I can't get over it. And I don't know. I think Jaws had more of an impact on me than E.T. as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
Like all my contemporaries just like choosing E.T. and I'm like, wait.
Yeah. Although go back and watch E.T. again. We just watched it recently around Halloween. And boy, it's just an amazing movie. Like it's just, it's incredible. And practical effects of the late 70s, early 80s, how beautiful they were done. And he seemed like a real creature. You buy it.
Yeah,
100%.
It's the truth. Oh, I know, wow. Right? He really did have us engaged into the reality of it.
Yeah. Yeah. And then you've got Goonies, which is produced by him. Richard Donner directed it.
Goonies.
But it's one of the best movies of all time, I think. It's just an amazing film.
So you did you ever hunt for treasure as a kid?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, there was a crawl space underneath our house growing up that had a big hole in it. And so my brothers and I were convinced that there had to be treasure down there. So there was a railroad tie buried there, but that's as close as we got to treasure.
And you made films with your brothers.
Mm-hmm.
See, so you were doing as a kid what you're doing now, which is great.
Yeah,
which is my favorite thing. And
it took me until I was 39 to decide to pursue it as a career. Dabbled in it, and I always felt like I should have been an actor, and so there's just a lot of things that you as you're growing out of younger desires when I just realized, like, so truthfully, to do it all over again, I would have just gone to film school right out of high school and just gone for it. And I didn't think I could, though. There's so many things you have to know. And so it took me until I was 39 to decide that I was going to teach myself how to do all of it. I mean, granted, I had 20 years of experience, on sets, acting and on productions and stuff. So the bones were there, but I'd never held the camera myself. I directed a lot, but I'd never edited with my hands. I just never did it. So I taught myself how to do it all. And so, yeah, I'm pretty much living the life that I want.
Yeah. I kind of taught myself how to do it all too, Matt, because I never got a byline until I moved to Teton Valley from Minneapolis in like 2006. And that's when I started getting bylines in regional magazines here in the Tetons. And then someone I knew decided to start a newspaper here, and I asked her for a food column, and she said yes. And so it really was kind of my, I would say it was kind of my matriculation, because I majored in, I wanted to be an English major, and I think I wanted to teach, but I didn't really know. And I wasn't so compelled to stay in my studies that I didn't, quit and go get a job, because that's what I did basically. At any rate, so I didn't really pursue. I kind of did everything flip-floppy, like I got a job, and then I went back to what I wanted to do, which was kind of write and see where my imagination could take me. And so I started a food column with this newspaper, and it went for like 6 years, as long as the newspaper went, I think.
Wow, that's
and
awesome.
Then we left Teton Valley, and like I said, I went into digital media, and that's when you get forced, your hand is forced to write about everything that's put in front of you in order to make a digital presence, a branding presence, stay alive or keep it alive or make it bigger, or, kind of galvanize what it's about. And
keep the machine
puppy.
rolling.
Yeah.
At the door. I'll let him in a second.
Cute. So I think that my writing has just, and even at a corporate level, I did marketing writing. I did bid proposals. I was always writing. So it was kind of flip-flop, because I did some technical writing, and then I did some creative stuff. And now I write, I do grants. I do grant writing, and I do marketing, and I do social media. And I still write long format articles, like I said, for those great people over at Artist Network that have all those awesome magazines, and Plein Air magazine. And so, I've always wanted to be a writer. And I only achieved this. Maybe I shouldn't mention my age.
Don't need
but
to.
Our audience, which is very small, is probably really smart too.
Yeah, I would think so.
All three of you out there can do some math.
Well, all the people that we have on the show are very, very smart, and it's cool to listen to them talk. When you were doing the food column, was it somewhat of a critic situation, or was it more I taste the food, I talk about it? What was it like? Yeah.
So the biggest compliment I got from my editor about that column was that she said it was ahead of its time. And what I like to do is write about food, and that it is a cultural experience that touches us all at many different levels, whether it be in the home or at a restaurant. And so you can't really be a critic. And I wanted to tell you that I figured out how many people live here now, which is 10,000 people.
Oh, okay.
But at the time I lived here and wrote that column, there were 7,000 people. And so to be a critic is almost impossible, because you don't want to get, burned in effigy.
For sure.
I mean, and so what I'd like to write about was the food experience. And so I even went to my friend Ashley. Her mother is the lunch lady for the Teton School District.
Oh, cool.
And I went to her house one afternoon, and we canned chicken. And I wrote about that. I wrote about canning, which I hadn't really done as a child. And I would write about restaurants that opened and talk about the experience as I saw it. And so, it was more experiential. And my biggest writing hero for food is Bourdain. I see him as a chef, but I see him as a man who was a storyteller who shared so much with us in that way. And, it just always inspired me no matter what. So, Yeah, I was more about writing about which I like to write about the experience of artists too. You know, I was writing about culinary artists then, and I write about visual artists now, and I like to write about their experience in the world making the art. You know, how does that feel, and what's the medium about? Certainly, my editors want to know certain things about the process, but I like to know about the struggle because I think that's the thing that ties us all together.
Yeah. Do you know who Jonathan Gold is? He was they called him the food critic, but for the LA Times, and for many, many years, and he passed away 3 or 4 years ago. But I was lucky enough to wait on him when he came in to review a restaurant that I was working at the time. And he was one of those guys who he's Pulitzer Prize winning. So, you know, if you want to go back in time and look at any of it, his writing is gorgeous. It's beautiful. And even though he was called a critic, he really did that same thing. He was really writing about the experience and to talk about the food and talk about the experience. I mean, if it was garbage, he would say it was garbage. But he also would say, if it was transcendent, he would say it was transcendent, and it was really cool. And the experience that he had that particular night at this particular restaurant was one of those nights that he just thought that this was food that wasn't being made anywhere in LA and needed to have more love. And of course, after that happened, the place just exploded by you know, so many accounts. So I think that there's so much power as a writer. You know, I wrote for a wine and spirits magazine for about 6 years and never said a negative thing, because the point was, maybe I don't love it,
right? But
the effort and the love that it took to make it is you can't put a grade on that, you know, 5-star for effort or whatever. No, it's
right.
Everything is done with equal amounts of effort many times.
So I am most judgmental. Like, I could be a terrible critic because I really do think that as well. I mean, even as a diner in the world, like, I'm going to leave a tip because people have bad days, and I'm not going to punish somebody. You know, they've been on their feet all day. At any rate, oh gosh, I forgot what I was going to say. Darn it. That happens to me. It happens to me when we don't have a guest.
Right. Yeah.
I think just in general, the experience of like when we interviewed Christian and Lisa Hanley, and I talked about like facilitating a dining experience.
Yeah.
I just, like I said, I really believe in it as just this cultural thing that ties us all together. And, you know, everybody's life is somehow centered around food, dude. Like it reflects your economic status. It reflects your background and what you've been exposed to and what you're willing to do more of. Like, I mean, that's why I do go to a place for breakfast, and they have a new server. Sorry, industry people. And she was trying to kind of learn the pattern of the customers, and Tracy, who's like the head waitress, was like, well, Jen, sorry, Tracy, server. Oh my God. Jen doesn't really order the same thing over and over. She's not one of those people. and the one who was new was just like, oh, good. I love someone who you can never guess, you know? Yeah. And so I tend to not really stick to one thing. I want to try new things. I was brought up, I've said before, as a military brat, and be taken to Asia and Europe, you know. I'm not afraid to try most things. And that for sure counts with food, like big time. Yeah. I think that's the biggie.
Yeah. That's cool. Cause I think we can get stuck in our patterns and stuff. And having been able to, you know, while I was simultaneously attempting to be an actor and, you know, serving, bartending, all that stuff, I worked in some of the greatest places, you know, in the States. And so it expanded my palate greatly, you know, that I can, and understanding food and understanding where the food comes from, you know, a lot of farm to table stuff and things like that really changed the course of how I eat and approach food, for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I had the fortune in Fort Collins of working with somebody who does these massive farm to table dinners on the farm. And so one restaurant will come out, the chef will come out with his crew, and there'll be some kind of theme, whether it be seasonal or not. But that experience of really going to the source, that did inspire a lot of my writing at the time. And I still, I mean, I really enjoyed the critical voice of Ruth Reichel, who also worked for the New York Times. And she was often had to be in disguise and stuff like that. And I don't know, to not be able to write about food openly because you just want to praise it, like I can't imagine having to cloak myself, and not be able to enjoy a meal because if I were a critic, no, screw that.
Yeah.
Like I want to celebrate it all. And I do really enjoy talking about the food chain because I think if you can grow your own food and keep it as close as possible to your life and not involve like second, third, fourth parties that are controlling how you get it, where you get it, how much it costs. Growing food is an act of revolution, I believe. And it takes us back to our agricultural roots as a kind of a society.
Absolutely. There's a gig that I'm doing at the moment for the state. Yeah. That is all about the farm to child idea, where it's grants to provide early childhood development centers to grow their own food and to have their own gardens, things like that. Because of the disconnect that's there with kids, don't know where a chicken nugget comes from. So let's teach them, where the food truly comes from, and they could be a part of the process from start to finish, planting and harvesting and preparing and eating. It's really cool.
Yeah, I love that. I love it, engendering that knowledge in children. And there truly is a generation of kids, especially based on the region of the country they live in, whether or not they know what a potato looks like, yet they eat French fries all the time.
Right.
And so it's kind of a little bit of a tragedy. And you want kids to get their hands dirty in that regard. And of course, you want your kids to play outside more than be inside, but to get involved in gardening and actually like this, how to sustain oneself that's a whole different level.
Yeah.
It's great.
Definitely.
That's super cool.
Yeah.
Where did you go to film that? Are you starting to film that?
Soon. Yeah. It's kind of all over the state. Montrose and Durango, which is sort of in the southwestern part of Colorado. And then some local stuff here as well. So, which is cool. Yeah, it's been fun. That's kind of become the bread and butter of the business, is less so like commercials and more or less short documentary pieces, about whatever it is, whether it's this or someone's, furniture business, whatever it is. Like that's what I love to do. I love to tell people stories. It's very exciting. Yeah.
And I know, and I like to say too that I've never really thought I'd be an online content editor for a brand like Southern Living, but that's what I'm doing. And no matter what's thrown at me as far as that's concerned, and you and I have talked about this before, even when I maybe don't necessarily enjoy what's been assigned to me, I still think in my head, hey, Jen, you're an editor. You're a writer and you're an editor, and you're doing exactly what you wanted. And you're making it work for now, and that's got to be good enough. And it's not going too poorly.
Right. Yeah.
There are days.
Yeah. Challenging days.
But yeah, overall, I feel the same way you do about having the opportunity to kind of do what you wanted, and just always keep the perspective of no matter if it's marketing or if you're ghostwriting for somebody, which I've done that as well. And, writing a newsletter, which our guest Ryan Ariano and I talked about, is it product or is it passion? Well, sometimes it's product, but that's okay too, because you're still writing,
right? And
you're helping somebody's brand voice. And as a writer, that's also pretty gratifying. There's ways to enjoy it, and it doesn't make it feel like work. And that's where you want to be with it. So I'm feeling pretty good about it.
Exactly.
And now I get to do this kind of thing with you.
Yeah. It's fun. And to get to talk to people that you wouldn't necessarily get to actually have like just a real sit down conversation with, which is really fun.
Yeah.
Like with Bly last week or Tatiana Berman, like these are people who are extremely interesting artists and performers and things. And you don't really get a chance to just have a sit down with people like that always. And so it's a lot of fun.
And I mean, some of our guests, yes, I know, and I know them because I've interviewed them for print articles. But I still have somewhat of an agenda for the magazine for that brand or for my editor. But I do practice very conversational interview style. What's heard on here, excuse me, is really close to what it's like to talk to me when you're getting interviewed for a magazine article. But I want to share it because it's fun. And I've had a lot of my subjects say to me, "Oh, no one's ever pointed that out to me before. You're right about that." And so if there's an uncovering of stuff that even the subject is surprised at, that's where I get happy. And, they learn something about their process or themselves. And that exchange can kind of be like a treasure hunt.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Advanced Pretend is a podcast produced by 9 Stories Creative Podcast Studios, created by Jenn Rein, executive produced and edited by Matt Jackson. Find us wherever you get your podcasts.